You know, back in the day, a band called Cinderella had a hit with a song called Nobody's Fool. And Ozzy, in his famous song Crazy Train, sang, "I've listened to preachers, I've listened to fools." And many other classic hard rock songs use the word fool. So I've got a question for you. Are you a fool? And according to the scriptures, what is a fool? What does a fool do or not do? And did you know that according to the Bible, you actually get to choose whether you live your life as a fool or as a wise person? In this little two-part series, we're going to deal with what does it mean to be a fool and what does it mean to be wise. Here in this first video, we're going to ask the question, what is a fool? What do fools do? What do they not do? And how can I avoid living as a fool and live a life of wisdom and joy and a life that is blessed and meaningful and purposeful? And I'm so glad that you're here because this is going to rock you up, man. This is going to be practical and it's going to help you live a better life. And it all starts right now. Rocking you up for Jesus Christ with classic style hard rock music and practical Bible teaching. All right, man, I'm excited to dive into this. In this video, we're going to examine 3 passages of Scripture that are going to help us to understand what a fool is, what a fool does and doesn't do, and why it is an extremely bad idea to live as a fool. Bible passage number 1, Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. I'm going to create a second video to this, and we're going to use these same passages, and we're going to focus on the wisdom part and what it means to live as a wise person. But in this first part, as we focus on foolishness, I want us to just look at the second part of this verse. A companion of fools suffers harm. The New Living Translation words this phrase, associate with fools and get in trouble. And the King James translates it, a companion of fools will be destroyed. The Apostle Paul distills this thought down very nicely in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. Bad company corrupts good character. The operative word in that verse is corrupts. Do you know what it means to corrupt something? It means to infect it, to weaken it, and to destroy the integrity of it. A great example of this is the foundation of a home. Before you build any part of your house, you build the part that no one will ever see. You build the foundation. You dig down. You take soil samples in many cases to make sure that the soil is right and that it's the right conditions to build a home. And then you dig down into the earth. And people who have great skills in doing this lay that foundation that is square and solid. And once the foundation is set and everything is as it should be, you build the home on top of that. And as long as the foundation is strong and solid and it has integrity, the home will be square and there won't be cracks in the walls and the doors will work and the windows will open and that home will last. It will stand when storms come. It will stand firm. But guess what happens if something begins to deteriorate that foundation? If it begins to crumble, if it begins to fall apart in certain places, walls will start to sag, things will start to crack, doors won't open, things won't be square anymore, and over time, that house will collapse. And that's what Paul's saying happens to people when they hang out with, I'm going to use the word fools. He says bad company. That's what the proverb writer is talking about in this verse. Companions of fools corrupt their character. They corrupt the foundation of their life and things begin to fall apart. Bible passage number 2, Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. Fear of the Lord is the foundation. There's that word that we just talked about, right? Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge. But fools despise wisdom and discipline. In part 2 of this teaching, we'll focus in on the first part of that verse. But here, as we consider what it means to be a fool, I want you to notice that the proverb writer says that a fool despises wisdom and discipline. When the Bible speaks of wisdom and discipline, it's speaking of the right way to do life. Take finances, for example. If you want to be wise and disciplined, then you're going to, number 1, have a good, strong work ethic. You're going to show up. You're going to be disciplined and do your job well and excel at it. Each pay period, you're going to set some aside in savings. You're going to set some aside right off the top for tithe and for offerings and giving to the kingdom. You're going to set some aside for fun and play and some for groceries and some for bills. In other words, you're going to have a budget and you're going to live within your means. But the fool says, dude, I got paid. Let's go have fun, right? Never gives a thought to any discipline or wisdom. Wisdom and discipline always include delayed gratification. I want to do the right thing now so that I can experience the fruit down the road. The fool says, forget sacrifice. I want it all right now. Apply that to your health. You want to live with wisdom and discipline discipline in the area of your health? Take the time to educate yourself on the habits of healthy living. You're going to learn about getting enough sleep and staying hydrated and getting enough movement and exercise in your life and nutrition and the need to balance or at least moderate the amount of white processed things that come into your life, sugar and flour and those things. You're going to learn about fruits and veggies and meats and all those things, right? I mean, we know this stuff, but you're going to learn about that and then you're going to apply that to your life so that you eat a balanced diet and take care of yourself and do those things. The fool says, dude, eat, drink, and give me some cake and soft drinks and the whole deal, and forget about sleep, man. I'll sleep when I die, which will be much earlier for the fool. I mean, we can apply this to anything, man. If you're single and you're looking for a spouse, the wise person says, okay, what kind of person do I want to have as a spouse? Now I need to become the kind of person that kind of person would want to be married to. I want a faithful person. I want a person who loves Jesus. I want a person who wants to serve the kingdom with their life and live a life of purpose. Okay, then I ought to become that kind of person myself. Where will I find people like that? Well, it's not going to be at the bar down at the corner. I need to plug into a family of believers and begin to do life and build relationships. That's where I'm going to find a person like that, right? That's wisdom. The fool says, I'm just going to roll the dice, do whatever I want. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to go wherever I want. Now, I'd love to have a great spouse who's faithful and all the great things, but am I going to work on becoming that myself? Nah, because they despise wisdom and discipline. And biblical passage number 3, Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. This is the end of the Sermon on the Mount, the greatest sermon ever preached by Jesus himself. It's contained in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. When I was in school studying for ministry, my homiletics or my preaching professor, Dr. Inyart, man, he was great. He would talk about the spear. And the spear is the end of the sermon. It's the point you use, the illustration you use, there are a lot of ways to do it, but you want to drive your main point home. This is Jesus' spear for the end of the Sermon on the Mount. It all comes down to this. Jesus says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise. Wow, that's pretty succinct, isn't it? Like a person who builds their house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents, and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it's built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and does not obey it is foolish. Like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and the floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. Focusing on his words about the fool doesn't look for good solid ground to build their life on. They don't build their life on any firm foundation like God's truth, God's foundation, a relationship with him. They don't let his word and his truth guide their life. They say, hey man, I've already got it all figured out. I already know the right way. They despise wisdom and discipline. They're like, who cares if this is a solid foundation, man? I'm just going to build my life on fun, pleasure, whatever I want, whatever my flesh wants at the moment. I'm going to get all I can. I'm going to can all I get, and I'm going to sit on the can and keep it all to myself. Jesus says when the rains come, and guess what? The rains and the storms and the winds of life come into every single life. You're not going to have much to stand on in those times. If you're a fool who has not taken to heart the words of Jesus and applied them and lived them out and obeyed them. Fools may know the truth up here, but they've never allowed them to change this part of their life down here. They say the longest 18 inches in the world is the 18 inches between your brain and your heart. It's one thing to know information about God. It's a whole different thing to allow it to transform the way you live. The result of living a foolish life is a life that's weak and empty, a life that has no foundation or foundation at best that is crumbling. And when your life is built on those kinds of things, it's not going to be joyful. It's not going to be meaningful. It's going to be dysfunctional. You're going to have self-inflicted pain and unnecessary dysfunction in your life because of the choices you make and bring upon yourself. The good news is you get to choose whether you want to live as a fool or as a wise person. And in part 2, we're going to look at these same passages, but we're going to focus on the wisdom parts of them. And of course, it all starts with accepting Jesus.